Hello Year 2 and welcome to our lesson 4 of our science learning on materials. Today we're going to be looking at exploring which is the best material for a raincoat. So we're going to start us off by looking at our know more, remembering more. So the first true or false question says different objects are all made from the same material. True or false? You call out your answer. Right, a multiple choice question. A good material for a fork is A, wool, B, glass, C, metal, or D, stone. Our recall question, where do we get wood from? So we have covered this already, so have a think back. Where do we get wood from? And our looking back at our Year 1 learning question is, what season is after winter and before summer? So hopefully some of you called out your answers or written them down on a piece of paper in front of you. So let's go through the answers. So well done all of you who shouted out false. Different objects are all made from the same material. That is false. A good material for a fork is metal. So well done as you got that correct. And where do we get wood from? Trees would be correct. I can imagine quite a few of you calling out that answer. And the final one, what season is after winter and before summer? Spring. So we're going to be looking at what the best material is for a raincoat, and our success criteria is the following. That you are going to be able to define what waterproof means, that you can test materials, and you can explain which those materials are in fact waterproof. So our vocabulary, we'll do my turn, your turn. First one is waterproof, absorbent, and fabric. So let's have a think back. We're going to do a bit of a recap first of all. We've already looked at which material was the most absorbent, but what did the material have to do in order to be absorbent? What did it need to do to the liquid that was spilt? So hopefully this, for a few of you, popped up straight away. It had to soak, not suck, up the water that was spilt on the table. Now, if we think about opposites, we like doing that a lot in maths in English. What is the opposite term to being absorbent? What's the opposite of absorbent? Well done. I can imagine quite a few of you got this one correct. That would be waterproof. So waterproof is the opposite term to being absorbent. So what does waterproof mean then? If we're looking at that up in the dictionary, it would say a material that doesn't let water through. So a raincoat is a perfect example of that. So if we go back to our success criteria, which I shared at the beginning of the lesson, we've already now been able to define what waterproof means. But oh no, I've had a bit of an accident with my raincoat. It's got torn. Can you help me fix it? So if we have a think, aha. We could repair it by using a waterproof sticker, a waterproof fabric, which covers up the hole so the water doesn't come through. So if we have a think about the different properties of materials, what properties are we going to need in order to make a raincoat? Now, some of you might already have a raincoat at home or a waterproof jacket at home. What properties are we going to need to make a raincoat and why? So hopefully a couple of you have written some ideas down already. Now we are going to do our big question, our investigation. What is the best material for a raincoat? So how can we investigate this question using the equipment in the images shown below? So you've got a table there, you've got some beakers, you've got a pipette and some rubber bands. So before any scientist starts an investigation, they make a prediction. A prediction is your best guess of what you think is going to happen in that experiment. So we're going to think about this question, which is the best material for a raincoat? So what I would like you to do is write down on your piece of paper, so hopefully you've either got week 4, lesson 4 science learning from your learning packs, or you've been able to go and access that onto Purple Mash and you've got that open on your computer as well. Think about what you would say and what you would put down for your prediction. I think that will be the best material for a raincoat because, and then you need to tell me why. I'll give you a couple of moments just to think about your answer and write those down. So we also need to think about how can we test this question? How can we test which material would be the best material, for a waterproof jacket? So these are the methods, the steps we need to do to prepare the experiment. So number one, to secure small squares of each fabric over a plastic cup with a rubber band. Step two, use a syringe or a pipette to drip water over the material in order to test it. Step three, observe what happens to the water. Step four, record your observations in your results table. So we need to think about how can we know that a material will or will not let the rain through? What are we going to observe in this experiment? So if the material is not waterproof, the water will end up in the beaker or will soak through into the material itself. That means it's not waterproof. If the material is waterproof, however, the water will just sit on top of the material and it will not soak through. So we're going to record our observations. So the four materials we're going to look at today are felt, wool, plastic and cotton. And you're going to tick or cross whether the water soaks in, drips through or sits on the top for each of the materials listed in the table. So now we're going to watch the video of the experiment itself.
Hello everybody. Today we're going to test which material would be best to make a raincoat with. Now then, for a raincoat, what property do you think is important? Property that would be important for a raincoat is that it should be waterproof. Can anyone tell me what waterproof means? Waterproof means water will not go through the material. We're going to test today 4 materials. I have wool, I have cotton, I have plastic and I have felt. I also have a beaker of water here to test the materials with. Now before we test the material, I would like you to make a prediction. Which material do you think out of these 4 would be the best material for a raincoat? So which material do you think will be waterproof? Do you remember the experiment we did before about absorbent materials? We do not want our raincoat to absorb water. I'm going to test the material using a pipette. Now you could do this experiment at home, but you might not have a pipette, but you could use a teaspoon of water and drop it on a variety of materials. I have attached my material to a cup. You could do the same with an elastic band. So let's have a look. I'm going to take up some water in my pipette and I'm going to drop it on my material. On your sheet you have a table. Mark your observations in the table. Does the water soak through? Is it absorbed by the material? Or does it stay in a droplet on top, which means the material would be waterproof? So let's see with the wool. Now that's quite hard to see, but if I look inside my cup, what can you see? Has the water absorbed? Did it stay on top? Or has it gone through? I can see some water in my cup there. Mark your observation on your sheet. Let's next have a look at the cotton. What happened to the water there? It was a little easier to see that time. What can you see in the cup? Was my material waterproof? Mark your observation on your sheet. Now let's have a look at the plastic. What's happened to the water there? Mark your observation on your sheet. Now for the felt. What's happened with my water there? Can you see the top? Is it still in a bubble like the plastic, or has it been absorbed? Now you have completed your results table, please write your conclusion.
Okay, so now we have tested a range of different materials to see which one would be the best for a raincoat. So we can tick that as part of our next element to our success criteria. So now, as Ms. Bryant's already asked, we would like you to write your conclusion. So that is describing and summarising the things that you have found out today. So the most waterproof material is, and you would write the material that was the most waterproof, that kept the water droplets on the top. Then you can move on by saying which was the least waterproof material. Now it might be there was more than one. So if there was more than one from the experiment, then you might need to use an and in your answer. And finally, you need to say, was your prediction correct or incorrect? So if we think about the other properties, what other properties other than waterproof does a raincoat need to have? Think back to earlier this term. What properties do we want to avoid? Maybe talk about that with your adult. So how many can you come up with? Properties a raincoat should have: soft, flexible, waterproof, light. We certainly wouldn't want a hard, rigid, absorbent or heavy raincoat if we're trying to keep out the rain. So let's have a look at these three children's answers. Coats should be flexible, warm and waterproof. The best material for a raincoat is wool, as it is flexible and warm. Plastic is absorbent. Who do you think is correct? Now, we would like you to add to your conclusion that you've already completed. Raincoats need to be something, something, and something. So if we go back to the properties of a raincoat, what should the properties be? What should they have? And also explain to us why we wear coats. Because we wear coats to what? What do we wear them for? So hopefully now we have covered our success criteria. We've also spoken about how we define what waterproof means. We've tested a range of materials, and for your challenge part, you've explained which materials are waterproof and about the properties of them. So let's review the knowledge. Which types of materials are absorbent? Write a couple down. What materials are waterproof? Same thing there, if you could write some of your ideas down. What should absorbent materials be used for? Why do we need absorbent materials? And the final one, what is wool useful for? So that's the end of our science learning today. Hopefully you've taken a lot out for that experiment, and that will then build into our learning for the next lesson. I shall see you then. Bye-bye.